The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live on Wednesdays when we do Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're here with Dr. Doreen January. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning. You look all springy and fabulous. So you're intimidating. I'm just going to put this out there that if I look different today, it's because I have literally no eye makeup on because between allergies and wearing eye makeup every day, my eyes need a break. They just need a break. So I'm going to be the beady-eyed, small-eyed wonder over here next to this gorgeous, fabulous, impressive doctor. That's how it goes. Sometimes that's just how it is. But we're going to be with you live for this next hour here on Autism Live, and Dr. January is going to be answering your questions. There are lots of ways for you to connect with us. You can be watching us right now on autism-live.com. You could be watching us on YouTube, on Facebook. We are live right now, also on Periscope and Twitter. And then we will podcast later on. In addition to being on all those places recorded, we will podcast to iTunes. We will be on Spotify, on Deezer, iHeartRadio, all those places. So we're a free download on iTunes. Please like us on iTunes because here's the secret. When you guys like us on iTunes, that moves us up in the rankings and then more people when they search autism find us. So if you want to let more people know about us, please like us on iTunes and on Facebook and on YouTube, wherever you can, and subscribe. We love it when you guys subscribe in any of the different places. You can subscribe right on our website, which is autism-live.com. Lots of things to do on that page. Our full library of videos is available and searchable on that website. And you can chat with us from that website. I keep an iPad right here so that I can see what you guys write in on the live feature. And Traven helps me to moderate all your comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope. So there we go. Write in all the ways that you like to. We know that you all have preferential methods, but also want to say that Dr. January, who is one of my favorite people on the face of the planet because she started a place called CARD that changed my life in so many ways I can't even count. But the biggest way is that it gave me back my child who was diagnosed at 2.5 and was had lost virtually all functional communication and now is, writing his college practice essays because he's applying to Harvard in the fall. I know, like, who can stand that? Not me, don't make me cry. Although I don't have any eye makeup to run today. So there we go. There are benefits, right? Anyway, just one of the 1,000,008 reasons why I adore Dr. January and why I look to her as the preeminent expert of autism in our time. What other time is there? But I will say this, that there is no expert in this particular format who can give individual specific advice. It's just not possible. So please write in, and all of our channels are available right now for you to write in. And I see that you guys are already starting, and ask questions. Tell us what the closest major city is and give us as much information as you can, but expect answers of a general nature. And I always love it when you guys stay close because Dr. January always has more questions for you, so that she can help you. And I know that you guys write in all the time and tell me how helpful this segment is. And boy, it's my favorite. So anyway, I've talked too much. Dr. January, you ready for questions or do you have something you'd like to say first?
Oh, I'm ready and excited.
Okay, great. So somebody says, thanks for an awesome week last week with some great speakers. Pennsylvania is getting closer to opening from COVID, but no school here. I'm worried about keeping up with school and therapy. Any suggestions for transitioning back to normal life? And can my ABA do ESY as we tip into the alphabet land? ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, ESY, for those of you who are watching, extended school year, because everybody's worried about summer school. More and more schools are saying, we don't think it's happening. And
Yeah.
parents were holding on to summer school to help their kids to get caught up. And I'll tell you, I feel it. People are right on the verge of panic, Dr. Grampy about the school situation. So
Yeah, I get it, and I don't. And you saw the lovely article that our dear colleague Cecilia Knight sent us yesterday. It reminded me that uh, some of the stress that's going on, some of the panic that you refer to, is not necessarily just that we're concerned about our kids falling behind, but also that we need a break. We need a break, and this article, for our viewers, the article had to do with all the additional pressure that has been placed on parents right now, um, as if it wasn't hard enough in the past. I felt, after reading that article, I was just very thankful that my kids at this time have grown up, thank God. But like, honestly, I completely know for families who have young children, because you really are, it is incredible how busy we are. I honestly thought that at the beginning of this period, like, working from home would be less busy, but it's packed. I mean, I don't leave my computer for 6, 7 hours straight, solid, every day. And then you have like I don't even have time to go get a coffee or something. And I can't imagine with people who have young children, you are also running back and forth and trying to help them deal with the computer and deal with their educational stuff online. And it's unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable, the pressure on the parents. So um, I would love to be able to help the parents with school or academic functions, but unfortunately, unless we are funded to do so, we cannot do so. So, most of our families right now are funded through insurance. And when you are funded through health insurance, medical insurance, it is the content of the therapy is restricted to what is classified as medical necessity criteria. So things that fall under medically necessary criteria. And there are things like, for autism, obviously, we argue that language, for instance, is a medically necessary type of intervention, because we want to teach the child to communicate so that they don't have tantrums, for example. So medically necessary stuff is everything that helps reduce the symptoms of autism. It does not include academic stuff by any means. So unless there's school district funding in place, we cannot get involved with academic stuff. Now, for some families, there is school district funding, and of course, we do get involved with academics. So, that is wonderful, and I wish we could do more of it. Now, we have also had other parents write into us and say, why doesn't CARD just provide homeschooling? And we are looking into that. In fact, at 1 o'clock today, I have a call about that. And let me just write that down so I can make sure to follow up on the whole homeschooling thing as well. We need to get some permissions, and I don't know much about homeschooling. So we kind of need to figure out exactly what it would take for us to be an organization that can provide that service to our families.
And the question was asked last night for the academies that we have at CARD. Are they doing distance learning right now, or are they still providing one-to-one? Do you know? I was saying that I'm going to ask about that, but and I don't mean to throw you a side curve here.
Sure.
But is that something that they're already doing, or are they still providing one-to-one?
They're providing both. The issue with our academies is that they are classified as schools. So and typically we get referrals for the most severe individuals on the autism spectrum to go to our schools. So public schools refer to us those kids who they can't manage. And so what ends up happening in our academies is that we have, our academies are some of my favorite sites. They are incredible. And we owe it all to our incredible superintendent, Marianne Cassell, who's a senior at CARD and also a behavior analyst, of course. She's incredible, and she has set up an amazing situation at the academies where all of the therapists are very, very well trained, and they are one-to-one, right, with the patient, with the students in that case. And so now that we cannot have the academies running, we have, it's a very unfortunate situation, but so most of those children need physical one-to-one. They need face-to-face because they are either highly aggressive, assertive. They're not the type of child, their functioning level doesn't allow us to do a lot of telehealth. Having said that, the bigger problem is that the majority of districts, school districts, don't allow physical contact right now. They do not allow us to do what we're doing as healthcare providers. As healthcare providers, we're exempt, right? We are considered essential healthcare. So we come into the home and we can have contact if we choose to. And of course, we choose to, and that's why for most of our families, we provide in-home services. But for the academies, in some cases, we are prohibited. For example, in the UFC, we are not allowed to have face-to-face contact. So we can't even have the therapists coming, or the teachers and the aides coming into your home for our academies. So we have 4 academies. In some cases, we have been made exceptions where we are allowed. Other than that, we're doing some telehealth where it's possible.
Sorry, I'm muted. Thank you for that. And we'll keep people posted on that, because I see that as a growing concern that people are having. And even this morning, right before we went on air, we got a notice from my son's principal saying, that here in California, that our governor was making an announcement yesterday. And as a part of that, he said, when schools are back in session in the fall, and our principal wrote to us and he said, I don't want you to all count on that. I don't know that that's happening. And I was like, oh, okay, wake up call. And I think a lot of people are having that around we're not like that, he's like, I don't even know if we're happening in August for the fall semester. Woo, spin my head.
Other countries, Shannon, like Canada, for instance, has already said that they might likely keep schools closed until January. And yesterday, just because my daughter goes to UCLA, we got a notice from UCLA that said that the fall semester for students at UCLA, the fall semester, they will give every class online optional. So you can go to class if it's open, but if you choose to go the online version, you can also go online. They're trying to reduce, they're assuming that even if there is a resumption of classes, that they're trying to keep it very small.
Well, and as you know, part of what has happened with all this is for all of us that have continued to conduct any kind of business whatsoever, you had to run to catch up, and then we're all trying to get ahead. And obviously for an education place, if I were looking at, my next big thing is the fall, I would want to be ahead and offer options now while I had the time to plan. Because being ahead is 9/10 of all of this as I see it. I think we all do. Now, Sheila has written in, and Sheila, I got to ask you for more information because I don't know quite what it is that you're asking. So will you do me a favor and will you write in more? And Traven, as soon as she does, will you make sure that I get that? But I want to start with a question from Critter Kid. Hello, Critter Kid. They say, my son is infatuated with our dog. He lays or sits near the dog staring at it. The dog has anxiety issues. Dog videos to help him with the dog interests, like showing him other dog breeds. But he says he feeds the dog. She says he feeds the dog 2 times a day and can give it treats. It's just when he tries to touch him, the dog startles. I wish they loved each other equally. And so, Dr. Granpeesheh, do we have some advice for her with her? The child is 4, with how to interact with a dog. I got to say that there's a dog training expert who works with dogs to be companion dogs and assistance dogs, that if we feel like it's necessary, I can have them visit the show too and talk about what it's like from the dog perspective. But from the little boy's perspective, there's a lot we can do, right?
Well, but I'm not sure. Absolutely. I mean, there's always a lot we can do, but I'm not sure the little boy is doing anything wrong here, because
Yeah.
I'm just reading this and I don't know what he's doing. I think it's just an anxious dog. And I mean, I have dogs. I've had dogs my entire life, and some dogs have an anxious personality. We don't know why. I mean, we get our dogs when they're puppies, right? Or sometimes they've had some sort of thing happen in their past, and sometimes they just are scared of loud noises and things like that. So there's a lot of my inclination is to just tell you how to make the dog less anxious rather.
Well, go for it. I would.
There's calm tabs. There are dog supplements. There's vitamins for dogs that help them stay calm. There's vests that you can put on dogs that help them
Thunder shirts.
Thunder shirts. My
Yeah.
one of my dogs has this thing that just wraps. It's like a wrap. You wrap it. I think it's just a matter of helping them feel secure. I honestly, it's, the only thing I can think of here. I mean, if there's something else, we do have kids who absolutely have a hard time understanding that dogs are alive and they do things to them that are painful or hurtful. But in this case, it doesn't sound like the child's doing anything. He's just wanting to spend time with the dog. So I think that it's a matter of just explaining to the child that you can have some time with the dog. It's a theory of mind thing more than anything else, I think, Shannon, where maybe the child is having a hard time understanding that the dog is anxious and doesn't want contact. And
Yeah.
so, and teaching theory of mind is a much bigger subject. I wouldn't use the dog to teach theory of mind. I would just maybe go to the skills curriculum where theory of mind is described and broken into 1,000 little lessons and start there. Because theory of mind, for our viewers who don't know, has to do with our children having a hard time understanding someone else's perspective. And of course, this applies to this case. Some of the more basic lessons in theory of mind are things like telling the child to throw a party for mom, and who
Mm.
invite, and what are the types of activities you would have. And there's a million different things that we do to help the child take perspective. And once they get better at understanding someone else's perspective, I'm sure it'll help also with the child understanding that maybe the dog doesn't want to be touched. But truthfully, it's a beautiful thing also for our kids to have a bond with animals like this. So in some ways, I feel like, let's maybe Critter Kid wants to tell us a little bit more about exactly what's going on. That's possible.
And a couple of things here, because you brought them up. What a great thing for all of those of you that are doing telehealth. Tell your person that's doing telehealth to ask your child to throw a party for you. It's Mother's Day on Sunday. Make it happen. Don't be afraid to ask for it. It's still, I know a lot of times as women, we think, well, if I have to ask you to do something for me, then it's not the same. No, let go of that. Ask for it and have them do it. It still feels great even when you ask them to do it, sometimes even better. And you brought up skills, and the folks at Skills asked me to give you guys an update that there's a new thing that is free right now on Skills. So the new one that is available right now is Getting Started. So if you go to skillsforautism.com, then at the top, you'll see that there are little headings. You want to go to the one that's Health and Human Services. Then it's a drop-down menu. You go to Caregiver. Then from there, you go to Parent. And then under Parent, there are all these different trainings. If you put right now the ones under the heading Getting Started, or the ones Overcoming Challenging Behavior into your cart, if you put all of them in, it says you owe like $90. If you go down to a little approval code, it's where you can put in a code, you want to put in, and it has to be case sensitive, all capital letters, COVID, COVID hyphen, that's the little dash in the middle, 19. When you put that in, if you've chosen the right ones, your cart should zero out. And then you can, finish. You have to give them the information of where to send it and all of that stuff. If you have any difficulties, or if you feel really bummed out because you missed the last one that was free, which were the useful tips at home, you can call, or if you have any difficulties, 877-975-4559. They want you to know that they are working long distance, so it can take them up to 24 hours to get back to you. But call that number, 877-975-4559. But everybody, go ahead and check out those free videos because they are free this week. Isn't that fabulous? All right, sorry, I had to make sure that I got that information out there. Okay, Kofun, I always mess this up. Koyan Thing says, hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being here with us and for being such a lovely viewer. Jen says, hi there. Says, hey, and we're saying hey back. And we're saying hi to Christina and Catherine. Catherine wants to know, is homeschooling the best thing? Because we were talking about homeschooling before.
Yeah, I think it's really good for some people. So it really has to do with the child. There's a lot of things to consider. I think, our kids get a lot out of school that's not academic. They get social out of school. And so if it's a child who is one of their main social environments is school, then I wouldn't want to take homeschooling away. I wouldn't want to take regular schooling away, because then homeschooling, you don't get the same level of social exposure. If it's a child who has a million other activities and we're not concerned about social exposure, then it might be the appropriate thing. Homeschooling obviously allows us to do a lot more personalization of what it is we're teaching the child. So that helps. A lot of our kids get bullied in school. That's completely avoided in homeschooling. Obviously, one of the things that's of big concern for our parents is our kids tend to be easily influenced by peers because they just have a good heart and they trust their peers very quickly. And they have a harder time, identifying who they shouldn't trust. And so they are much more easily influenced by maybe bad peers. And so for those reasons, homeschooling could be a good thing. Is very child specific, the decision whether or not to homeschool. I mean, right now, you're all homeschooling, right? You just don't have any help. And it's like education has kind of fallen on all parents, and that's what's making it all very difficult.
Yeah, right now, I think the reason why it keeps coming up is because now it's the only option, only game in town. Speaking of which, Catherine wants to know if we're in Las Vegas. Virtually we are. Virtually we're everywhere, but no, we are not in Las Vegas. All of us right now are somewhere in the vicinity of Los Angeles. Yes, go ahead.
When I read that, for some reason, I thought she might be asking about card, but maybe not.
Oh, well, of course. Hello. I think you're right. You're right. And card is in Las Vegas.
Card is in Las Vegas. Yeah, we actually have several locations in Las Vegas. We're merging two of the locations right now, but I'm pretty sure the Henderson site is a larger site. I know we had Las Vegas North and South or something, but I think they're merging together because right now, of course, we're reducing our sites because we're trying to cut down on expense.
There we go. When is a child old enough to do school or to do homeschooling at Card? And this is from our mom that has a 4-year-old.
Well, typically state by state this differs, but generally speaking, you're looking at 5, where you're starting school or kindergarten, I would say. But really, we don't do homeschooling right now. We are looking into doing homeschooling because we've had such a high demand. But we do a lot of academic assistance. We do a lot of tutoring. And of course, we are contracted with, I think, almost all the school districts that provide funding for what's called related services. And what we do is we assist with everything from making sure some of the goals in the IEP are met, to helping the child pay attention in school, in class, to helping the child interact with peers, helping the child do their homework, accommodations for the child. I mean, and everything that helps the child succeed in school. And we are often allowed to do so because the parent has gone to an IEP and requested these related services, and the district has contracted with us to provide them.
Yeah. I know a lot of parents are ask about the age thing, and I just want to throw 2 cents in there that we've been talking a lot lately about, with this COVID thing, this is an opportunity, and everybody should be doing the things that they can only do now. They should prioritize that, because there's things that you only can do now that you'll never get another opportunity to do, right? And I feel the same way about early childhood, that, eventually your child is going to have to go to school or be homeschooled. You're not going to have a choice. Like the truant officer will throw a fit and they'll legislate it. You got to do it, right? But there's this window of time with our kiddos where it's a little fuzzy, where it's like, well, you could put your child in preschool, you put your child in kindergarten, or you could wait another year. And it's different for every single kiddo, but for a lot of people who have kids on the autism spectrum that are dealing with social issues, but they're dealing with, communication issues and sensory issues and all these different things. For some kiddos, the best thing to do is to do intensive ABA every minute that you can until you can't. Because once you go to school, you're going to get less time to do ABA. So I just want to throw it out there as a parent who fought very hard for my child to get as much ABA before he started school, and who saw the benefit of that school's going to happen whether you want it to or not. But if you've got a moment of time when you don't have to, talk to the people who have eyes on your child, maybe not for all of them, but for, I would say the vast majority of littles need more ABA than they need school. And school's not going to tell you that. So I'll share that with you. Anything that I've said wrong that you would like to correct, Dr. Grebshay? Because I just go off sometimes.
No, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. I completely agree with you, Shannon. And that's why I said it's a little different for every state, because some states actually require the parents to start getting involved with preschool around age 3. There's a lot of different types of things, but I completely agree. This is part of the problem we have when our kids are 7 and 8. There's so much academic stuff that takes up their time, which academics are important as well, but honestly, if it was me, I'd much rather have my child speaking and socializing than knowing history. So, if we had a choice, I'm sure we would kind of maybe individualize what are the time that our kids spend on different areas differently.
Okay, Maya, we want to say hi to you. She's hoping that Georgia State University will have their classes held virtually in the fall too. And she's wondering if the dog has anxiety. Somebody wrote in and said, last week I asked in regards to scripting, and you said to tell my supervisor the lesson is introducing the topic in cognition. She says she can't find it. And skills is big, right? And it's like, sometimes it can be hard to find a specific thing, but the truth of the matter is your supervisor has resources with which to find this. But would you like to address this, Dr. Grebshay?
Yeah, I just ask this, if you don't mind, tell me the name of the supervisor and I'll help them.
There we go. But can you email that to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com? We don't need to put their business out on the streets. s.penrod@autism-live, and we will make sure that she is able to find that. But for future reference, there's like 18 people she could ask, including Evelyn Kung, and they'd be happy to.
She could ask anyone above her, basically, or her trainers. But yeah, You can also just let me know and I'll make sure to shoot her an email and tell her exactly where it is.
There we go. By the way, the child with the dog, the parent wrote back in and said he has an emotional support basset hound and he plays with it. He can hug and touch this dog. It's just the beagle that can't handle it. I'm so glad that he has another dog that he can love up. Yes. We're saying hi to Alexis. Alexis, we're so glad you're here. And you have some hot autism news from your country, Canada. Write and tell us. We want to know. Tracy says, hi, everyone. I have a paper on autism and I'm required to watch a live stream. Would anybody be willing to answer some questions afterward? Tracy, if you'll send me a link, I'll make sure to make it available to people to see if they want to answer questions. And I find it interesting that the child with the basset, of course, it's like love. He's not interested in the basset hound that's willing to put up with him. He wants the beagle who's playing hard to get. Such a male, right? Isn't that always the way? Oh my goodness. Okay. TS says, I am from the UK where ABA is not offered as a part of the National Health Service, and intensive interaction is something which is very promoted. I want to know Dr. Doreen's opinion about that.
I'm not sure I understand what it means. Intensive interaction is something which is very promoted.
Well, I think what I took from that is that, doing intensive ABA is considered the gold standard of treatment, and that they're saying it's not being offered by their National Health Service, at least intensively, and what your thoughts are on, because we have some of that going on in the United States too. I'm just going to call out that we have a very big state that I love a lot of the people in that state, but they're offering some ABA grants, which I'm deeply appreciative for, but they're making sure to offer it at a level that is not what is recommended.
Yeah.
They're giving like 3 hours a week of ABA and going, look, aren't we fabulous that we're giving 3 hours of ABA when, there is no study showing that 3 hours of ABA is going to do, anything to help the child beyond frustrating the parent and getting them to where they're supposed to be.
Right.
But ask me how I feel. They didn't. They want to know what you think.
So here's where I can show off my age or knowledge that's old. I don't remember now. I think my maybe fourth or fifth clinic was in England. So I know a lot about the UK and how things function there. I opened a site in the south of London, I think in 1993 or so. We had a full clinic there. It was all paid for by parents because there was no funding. And then I also opened another one in Oxford, in Cambridge, in Newcastle. I mean, we had numerous locations. And we were working with a lovely group of parents. I forget the parent organization now because Shannon's getting so old, but there were some very, very active parents at that time there, and we worked very closely with them. I came up and testified for a lot of families. The attorney who was representing them was Peter Bibby. I don't know why I remember these names, but we testified, we got school district funding. And so this is exactly identical to the history in the US up to a certain point. So in the US, it was the same thing. We were testifying for people to get school district funding back in the 90s. I was doing so much of my time was just in court as an expert witness, proving that what the school system offers is not sufficient. And then we were getting school districts who would fund our kids. But then as time went on, we started to really be able to, through research, prove that ABA works. And honestly, I have to credit our dear friend Gretchen Jacobs, who is in Arizona. She was a huge part. I don't think either one of us at that time realized what a big thing she did for the field. But this was the first bill that passed in Arizona. She was an integral part of that. And that was in, I don't remember now, in the early 2000s, where we literally convinced, first of all, she got us a huge grant in Arizona. We were able to do a pretty big study where we showed that a very large number of the kids actually improved and recovered from ABA. We then went to the Senate and House in Arizona, and the local government there was amazing, and we got all the major payers from United Healthcare, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, everybody involved, and they all agreed that it is something they would want to promote and try. And so they did. And then we took that bill, once that bill was passed, and sent it to Autism Speaks, who I really want to credit past Gretchen. And then they took the bill, modified it, and took it state by state, and ended up getting so much coverage for everyone throughout the United States. So that is the biggest thing I think that Autism Speaks has accomplished. And now, unfortunately, in England, that just never happened. So it was all funded by school districts and it was a case by case basis. And of course, the NHS is on a completely different system. It's not like commercial insurance here. And so the NHS never really considered it to be, again, we go back to that term called medical necessity. And I hate to tell you this, but it has to go through that process. There has to be enough research and recognition of the fact that ABA is medically necessary. It's not so much about the intensity of it so much. That's kind of the dosage. The first part is just to say it's medically necessary. It changes behaviors that are life-saving. So let's say a child who is self-injurious or aggressive towards others, or can't function in society. If they receive ABA, they will function well in society. And then that has to be taken through the government system in order for NHS to cover something like this. And, you know, we just gave up. I think I closed down all of at the end, when I closed down all the sites in England, I think we had something like 190 patients all over the UK. And unfortunately, it was really difficult because everyone had to pay privately. And this is too expensive for people to pay privately. I mean, it requires a one-to-one interaction. It shouldn't be, it's a very important part of healthcare. So, you know, and that's what's very unfortunate. So just to kind of give you a tiny solution real quickly, is that a lot of parents in England, they hire students who just graduated from high school, and then we train those students in our model, which is kind of called the workshop model, or remote services, and we provide oversight or we provide supervision for them. You're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. It's rough. I mean, it's not easy, right? But it's very doable, and people have been doing it for 30 years with CARD in many locations where they just can't get access otherwise. And in the beginning here in the United States, there were plenty of families. I remember when we started at CARD, I was looking for all kinds of information. And I, of course, had read Christina Adams' book, A Real Boy. And I had Logan Shepherd's parents were my shepherds, that they were like, you've got to go to this place. This is where it's all happening. But I remember going to the library and checking out everything I could find while we were filling out the paperwork. And there was an old VHS tape, and my husband and I put it in, and it was a woman who was explaining how to do an ABA program in your home. And she had done like a workshop model where, you know, she had somebody flew out to her house and trained her, and then she trained all of her therapists. It was much harder then, that, you know, because she had books everywhere and they were coming up with the curriculum. Now, of course, if you wanted to do that, you have things like Skills, and you have things like IBT to train your people, the Institute for Behavioral Training, which we talked about before. You know, so pretty, it's doable. It's absolutely doable. And people have been doing it for 30 years. Did they invent a better wheel? Yes. But if you don't have it yet in the UK, there is a way to do it nonetheless.
And can I just also say, Shannon, that, you know, one of my favorite people in the world, and I think you would agree, is Ilana Gershowitz, who
Oh,
was a parent in South Africa and in Johannesburg, and she was in the same boat. There's no funding there. And so she and her husband, Martin, who are both incredible people, they were not school teachers or anything. They just decided to uh, take over, and they put all of their savings into purchasing a small school, and then and that's when I met them, and I went in and we kind of retrained all their teachers. They lost a lot of their teachers, and because they were doing like silly stuff and not really ABA at that time. But then Alana and Martin like brought in the best people to train their teachers and train their staff, and they produced an incredible environment, not just for their own son, but also all the other children there. And in fact, it's such an amazing program, that they now have other locations in South Africa, as well as they help many other. They provide guidance and oversight to other countries in Africa. And so, and Ilana, of course, has now written a book about her journey. And I mean, so like there are parents, and I want to just say, their program, Star Academy, is fantastic. It's fantastic. And they help so many families. And she maintains a staff of board certified autism technicians. And I just can't, and this is all private funding, all. And so everything is possible. And Ilana and Martin are a good example of what you can, not only a way that you can help your own child, but also others.
yeah. I always talk about the power of one. And of course, sometimes it's not one, sometimes it's two, and sometimes it's five, right? But I'm always struck by the fact that when there's a will, there's a way. And, and that's the truth. And it's, parents always apologize to me when they're a little bit, persistent and pushy. They will apologize to me. And I go, oh, no, no, don't apologize for that. You're the kind of parent who gets it done. You're the kind of parent who changes the world and will open something that we'll all benefit from. Don't ever apologize for being that pushy parent. And I want to say, for those of you who are like, yeah, I don't think that's me, I'm a little overwhelmed. There are things for you as well. And it's a different playing field for all of us. I don't think that I could have done what that mom did, the workshop model that I watched on the videotape. My husband and I clutched each other and said, please don't let that be our new life, right? I don't think I could have done that, but I found something else to do, right? So we all have our thing to do. Find yours, do what you need to do to get what your child needs, and try not to break the law while you're doing that. Try really hard not to break the law, because you don't want to be in jail when they get the services. And don't hurt anybody while you're doing that. Let's set that as the standard. But pretty much everything else, like, be on it and keep calling people. And you're not, if they think you're a pest, then they're looking at it wrong. Hey, by the way, a very on it parent that I want to say hi to, Paula, is joining us. Good morning to you, Paula. Bonnie wants to know, is it okay to keep a child with moderate autism that has speech but is not conversational yet in a DI classroom where more than half of the students are of higher needs? I think that this is a really big question. I think I think a lot of people have been on this little pivot point about, because schools will just say, oh, your child needs to be in this classroom with all these other people. And sometimes that's the right answer, and a lot of times it's not. So what do you say, Dr. Grampy?
Yeah. I think, again, as you said, Shannon, it really has to do with the child's functioning. In general, our way of looking at integration into school programs was quite different originally. And our thought process was we would do a lot of therapy. See, and ideally, and this is kind of goes back to what Shannon you were referring to earlier on the show, is that ideally you kind of want to be able to do more of your ABA when the child is young, so that by the time they hit the age of, let's say, 6, they are doing so well that they can be fully integrated into regular ed, right? sometimes that doesn't happen for one reason or another. I read the other day, just on a side note, that the average age of diagnosis right now in the US is age 4, which was mind-boggling to me because
So much better than it used to be.
but still, it's like we can accurately and validly diagnose at age 2, and 2 to 4 are the most important years, right? So, anyway, that aside, the situation with school and classrooms is that if your child is in a classroom where there are other kids who are exhibiting more symptoms, the issue of concern becomes modeling and whether or not your child will pick up some of those behaviors. Um, and truthfully, it's very likely that they will. It is a common thing, let's put it that way. It's common that kids pick up challenging behaviors. Why? Because the child who is doing a challenging behavior receives a lot of attention when it's a classroom environment. It's unavoidable. Not to say that the teacher is doing anything wrong, but by simply going over there, taking the child and removing them from classroom, the child is receiving attention and is getting to go outside, which is a reward. So basically, our kids who see that figure out in their head, wow, this screaming thing is sort of effective. If I scream, maybe they'll let me out. And then they'll start to do that sort of thing. So that's kind of what is of concern, right? So either, ideally, what we always tell our kids, to our parents, is no, try to find a classroom that's a little challenging. So a classroom where your child is modeling good behavior, like learning or modeling from kids who are a little bit higher functioning. If I say that to every parent, obviously that makes it impossible, right? Because there's got to be a mix in every classroom. So I would just be very cautious and I would watch for that particular thing, which is modeling of bad, challenging behavior. And if that happens, then I would not recommend your child be in that classroom. I also think that if your child's in a classroom, which is, 30 hours a week, they better be learning a lot because that is the bulk of their time. And unless they're learning just as much as they would from a one-to-one program, then it's not the right placement. So remember, when there's 4 or 5 kids in a classroom of, let's say, 20, and those 4 or 5 are the ones who are challenging, they will get most of the attention from the teacher and aide. And so the other kids learn to just be quiet. And so the kids who are not making trouble are just being ignored in that way. So the kids who are not challenging are not getting enough attention because, like, realistically, how much attention does the 3 adults have to give? They can't, they just have to pay, they have to take care of the child who's screaming, right? So the child who's quiet gets ignored. It's just a natural thing that happens. So those are the things you want to watch for. You should do observations. Having said that, I do also want to say there are some classrooms, special ed classrooms, that are incredible. The teachers are incredible. And so you really have to have multiple observations. Maybe maybe have a friend observe, because if you observe, your child's going to behave differently, and then see what's going on there.
And just from a legal standpoint, I want everybody to understand that under IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, your child is entitled to a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment in which they have a floor of opportunity to access the curriculum. So that least restrictive environment, and you'll hear lawyers talk about it, LRE, your child has a legal right to that. And that's, so if your child can succeed in a typical classroom with a one-on-one aide, then that is the least restrictive environment in which they can have a floor of opportunity to access the curriculum. And a lot of times, we don't fully understand that. And so the child gets placed wherever they're going to get placed. It's important, as Dr. Grampiche says, to look at your child and know what your child actually needs. But I just want you to understand that legally you have a right to that. Yeah. And that schools never, for them to form a classroom, a special day classroom, and put 12 kids in it and put 3 adults is infinitely cheaper than taking 6 of those kids, putting them in classrooms and hiring a one-on-one aide for each classroom. Don't be fooled by the money. Get what is right for your child. That's all I want to say about that. Okay, Raquel said, we got a bunch of people who are studying ABA, which is really good. Raquel says, I'm taking an intro to ABA class in the fall. I'm kind of excited. I hope to be able to take what I learn into my classroom. And I think that that's really wonderful. And Maya says that she identifies herself as being on the spectrum, and she took a 40-hour course on to be an RBT. She's thinking about becoming certified and taking the exam after graduating. And I'm like, why would you wait? Why not take the exam now and become an RBT now? Right? Because we need as many of those as we possibly can. Hi, ma'am. My son is 2 years and 10 months old. He's diagnosed with ASD. He knows A to Z and numbers 1 through 30. He can sing nursery rhymes. So can you please tell me whether he will be able to speak in the future?
Yeah, and so you did this. He is vocalizing A to Z and 1 through 30.
Well, he or she doesn't specify that, but they say that he can sing nursery rhymes.
Right, yeah. So then, yes, if he can sing, if he's already saying, like, let's say 30 or more words, then yes, he can speak. And it's just a matter of putting them together. And also putting them together and paying attention to environmental cues and using them appropriately as functional language. But yeah, so, and also the other thing I want to say is it's very exciting when you have a child who is that young, 2, 10, I think you said, and they know numbers and letters. Numbers and letters, when a child teaches themselves numbers and letters at an early age, it tends to be an indication of hyperlexia. And hyperlexia, or the ability to kind of read and connect with letters and stuff early on, is a strength. It's kind of like having a strong visual memory. And so that helps our kids. Most of our kids who have, there's actually a lot of published literature on this. For children who have hyperlexia, they tend to do very, very well with ABA because they memorize really well and they are able to visually learn things very well. And this whole, I assume this child probably taught them themselves, these concepts will continue. And so they will do very well. They do also, though, on the downside, have the tendency to memorize things in a very rote fashion. So with hyperlexia, you just have to make sure that you switch things around a lot and make their responses be more flexible as opposed to rote, so that they learn kind of to qualitatively change their responses. And then yes, you'll have a blast, because our kids with I just think that the most fun period is watching our really young kids, the 2.5-year-olds, and when they start learning rapidly, there's nothing more joyful than that, because every day it's a new thing, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelmingly fun when a child gets ABA at that age and they start to just soak it in.
And I'm just going to piggyback on that because, you've done this so many times that I know that you can do it. And what I see a lot of times are that people get excited, but they're not with a good quality ABA provider. And that's right. The key. You got to do that.
And or doing the right dose. So it's
yes.
It's a combination of those things. And yeah, please don't waste time. Like 2.9, 2.10 is like the best time. This is the time when your child's brain has the most plasticity and can learn the most in a flexible way. So please don't waste time right now. Get your child a good quality ABA program. And let me tell you, one of the signs of getting a good quality ABA program is that your BCBA or whoever is with you, when they evaluate your child, will recommend an intensive program. There's this whole thing. So you have to understand that when your child is 2 years and 10 months, you're looking at what's called EIBI, or early intensive behavioral intervention. It's super, super important. That's the dose that your child needs. They need 40 hours per week of one-to-one intervention. And of course, everyone benefits from 40 hours a week. I would benefit from 40 hours a week of any kind of instruction. Let's be honest. Like if I want to freshen up my German or my French or whatever, I welcome 40 hours a week because I'll be caught up in 2 months, right? But with our kids, it's super important because they are, as they're aging, their brain plasticity slows down. They cannot learn as much material, just like all of us, right? And also, there's more material for them to learn. So when you're a 2-year-old, there's actually a really good chance for you to catch up by the time you're 6. So please don't waste time. Get into a high quality program and start an intensive program. Why is it important to start intensively right now? Because payers, your health insurance company, will not be allowing or funding an intensive program when your child's 6. Let me tell you, they will fund it when you're 2 and 3 and possibly 4. So get in there while you can and get the hours.
Yes, and don't be confused, because sometimes there are a lot of people out there who are like, well, your child needs to talk. So what you need right now, most importantly, is speech services. And I can tell you that there are all kinds of people who have 17-year-old children who can label something, that they can go door and they can say fish and they can say dog, but they can't say to you, hey, can somebody open the door because the dog is barking at the fish? And I know as parents, we all want that level of conversation, right? And it's not just about showing flashcards and making lists, right? It's ever so much more than that. And that's what you get with ABA. I get very hepped up when people say to me, well, I don't want to mess with my speech services, so we're not doing as much ABA because we have speech. No, 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 no. What yes, great to have a little bit of speech to work on the production and that kind of stuff, but what you really want, I know, because I'm one of those parents, you want the conversation. And so you need to prioritize ABA.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
there. We only have a minute and a half here. So I do want to just address this question really quickly. I'm 17 and autistic. I'm planning to go to college next year. My parents treat me like I am a child who can't do anything. How do I get them to see and accept me? I know you could take an entire hour on that, right?
I just love that. And I feel like we've been down this path before with someone else. And maybe it would be possible for us to connect this young lady to that young lady.
And can I tell you that that young lady was on the show last week, and has her own show now. So yes, maybe I will reach out to her and say, can you talk to this young man about, what you did so that you could feel emancipated? And, can I tell you from the other side, as a parent of somebody who's about to be 17, I understand the fear. I totally understand the fear. I want to coddle him. I would like to go back to the high chair because I'm so scared. Right. But I do think that sometimes, I have the world full of people like Dr. Granpichet and Dr. Temple Grandin, who reminds me from time to time, you have to let him do that. You know what I mean? And I think that for parents to have that social group of people, of kids that are going out into the world to talk to each other and say, you're just going to have to feel those feelings and let them go anyway. So I'm also happy to talk to your parents, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But
I want to help you understand them. And so it's important for when you want to change someone's opinion, it's important to first really see things from their perspective. And so first, let's focus on you, the viewer who wrote in, understanding how your parents feel. And that has a lot to do with what Shannon said. The reason that they're coddling you and trying to treat you like a baby is because they're worried that you might fail. And all parents feel that way, whether it's your parents or anybody else's parents. All parents are very worried when their children go out to college or go out to the real world, because we're always worried that our kids will fail. So
I got to interrupt you because you got to go to a meeting, but I got to tell you this really quick. Somebody wrote in and said, my son has hyperlexic and a dose of 40 hours of ABA a week at CARD and is rocking it even now with quarantine, we love card. And somebody else says we may not have had high quality, and I'm thinking about relocating to get my son in card. Email me so that we can talk about, where you're going and what you're doing before you leap, so we can get things ready for you.
So that's awesome. Thank you, Shannon. I'm going to let my board meeting wait because I want to help this.
Okay. All right. Okay.
We have a 17-year-old writing in and saying like, I am on the spectrum myself, so I can't let him go. So what I want to say is just try to understand how your parents feel, because once you understand that, you can sit with them and you can explain to them that their fears are, they don't need to be afraid. You can sit with them and say, I know you're worried about and you're afraid for me, but what you're doing is holding me back. So don't be afraid. This is not about what I can do. This is about you being afraid. So don't be afraid and let me fly. Let me take off. Let me fly. And if I fall, I will come back and ask you for help again. But don't be afraid, because I will always need my freedom in order to be able to fly and really show you what I'm able to do.
Well, that made me emotional as a parent. So thank you. Thank you for taking time from your board meeting. Please give them our apologies. But thank you for being here. We adore you. And thank you for answering our questions. I know you got to go. I'm saying goodbye to all of you, but I'm going to give them the reminder of what's on tomorrow. Tomorrow on the show, we have autism advocate Chelsea Darnell is going to be here with us. Thrilled to have her with us. She is so multi-talented. She's a singer. She's an advocate. She is hosting something called Saturday night. It's film. I can't think what the name of it is, but it's through the Ed Asner Center, where on Saturday nights, young adults watch a film ahead of time, and then they tune in together for a social group where they discuss it. So Chelsea's going to be with us tomorrow to talk about all the things that she's got going on. You're not going to want to miss it. And then on Friday, we have Anita Lesko, who's going to be here with us. You thought that it was just going to end in April? No. Anita Lesko is going to be with us to talk about her new book, Food Revolution, which I'm knee deep in. And Ryan Lee is going to be with us. Autism advocate Ryan Lee is going to be with us. So it's going to be great. And if you need to get a hold of me in the meantime, s.penrod@autism-live.com. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.